What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Front Yard Fantasy Mock Draft Review. Today, Josh and I are going to be breaking down the mock draft the team did on Mock Draft Monday this week. I was not there for the live stream. I was out of commission, but I've been looking at the draft board since then. We're going to share our thoughts on some of our favorite teams and maybe a little bit more about the draft as a whole. One thing I wanted to mention, we don't have to talk about it for too long, though. And Josh, I said this to you before we started recording, was this draft was really difficult to pick my favorite team from, more so than any of the other drafts we've looked at before.
I completely agree. I don't know if people are like getting better at mock drafting that are doing it with us. Maybe people are figuring out exactly where to pick the players or how we value players, but it is tough to differentiate these teams. I definitely, there's not one that stands out to me as really bad or really good. They're all pretty equal.
It's a lot of balanced teams, and maybe that has to do with draft strategy. With some of these teams, a lot of the teams taking similar draft strategies, but we can talk about our favorite teams. Josh, do you want to talk about your number one team first?
Yeah, sure, definitely. And it's pretty interesting because neither one of us were actually part of this draft. I was on the live stream, but I actually didn't draft a team. But when I look over these teams, like we said, they're very close. But I guess one that stands out the most to me is Eagle Dan FF right there. Now, look, he's got Josh Allen, the first overall pick he had. It's the second pick in the draft. That's where he deserves to go. This isn't why he won the draft, though. Jalen Hurts in the second round. I think that was a little early for me. So I'm surprised how much I ended up liking Eagles Dan's team. But here's where he starts winning. Cam Akers, early third. Keenan Allen, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chris Carson getting a second running back. Chris Carson is going to be a top 12 running back this year, guys. He's going to be a top 5, maybe a top 5 potential if he can stay healthy. I think the Seahawks are going to want to run more, but his problem's always been staying healthy. Cortland Sutton in the 7th round. I like Jerry Jeudy more than Cortland Sutton, but man, that's value. Tyler Lockett at the end of the 8th round. Marquise Brown, A.J. Dillon, Michael Carter, Pat Freiermuth. I love Pat Freiermuth's upside with the Steelers. I love him as a dynasty tight end. He probably wants to get an older tight end if we were going to do a full draft here, do a couple more rounds, but I really like Eagle Dan's
or
team.
Something in the later rounds.
Exactly.
Something you guys have to remember is we do the live stream in about an hour every day, so we're constricted by time. So we only do 12 rounds. A real dynasty draft would likely be 10 plus more rounds. So these teams are complete. We're just going based off the first 12 picks. But Josh, I agree with you. This was in my top 5 favorite teams from this draft. Like you said, I'm in dynasty. I'm not very high on Jalen Hurts or Chris Carson. But that being said, and I'll say this on every single freaking mock draft review. I'm going to beat it till I don't know what a phrase is to say there. But Dynasty is not just about winning in 3 years. Dynasty is about winning this year. Like Dynasty, you still play in the league every single year. And this is a team ready to win this year. Jalen Hurts, while I don't believe in him as a long-term Dynasty asset, I fully believe in his fantasy value for next year. He should be the starting quarterback for the Eagles.
Sure, you believe in his rushing ability.
Yeah, and he's going to get I feel like it's almost a gimme bet to say that he's going to get 1,000 yards rushing next year because you know what? I think he makes Drew Lock look like a good passer. The Eagles are going to be forced to run the ball with him. So Jalen Hurts with that rushing floor is going to be great for fantasy this year, even if he's not great for the actual NFL. Yeah, this is not to mention the addition
of Devontae Smith. He's got weapons. He's got 2 first-round wide receivers there. We'll see if Zach Ertz hangs around, but Dallas Goedert is a very good tight end in his own right. I think Jalen Hurts and Chris Carson, they're both going to have great seasons next year.
I completely agree. This team, I love drafting lots of wide receivers in dynasty startups. That's generally how I prefer to build a team. I was surprised by some of the teams I liked because they didn't necessarily go wide receiver early, like Eagle Dan's team, but he pieced together an awesome wide receiver core with some serious value in those later picks. Tight end is a weak spot though. He needs to get a veteran tight end, someone that he can plug and play this year. I don't know who that's going to be. Maybe Jared Cook, maybe who he likes better out of the Patriots tight ends, maybe a Rob Gronkowski, but someone until Pat Freiermuth develops, because I don't imagine he'll be a fantasy contributor in his first season.
I can see it, but I would not rely on it. I could see it.
Odds are against it. Rookie tight ends don't generally produce. We're betting on an outlier with Kyle Pitts. I'm not going to take the same bet twice in the same season. Statistically, it doesn't make sense.
Pat Fryermuth, I think if Kyle Pitts wasn't in this draft, Pat Fryermuth would be a lot more hyped up. People would be a lot more excited about Pat Fryermuth. It's just the hype with Kyle Pitts is so out of this world that people aren't even thinking about Fryermuth.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, great team. But my favorite team, and it pains me to say this. John Luke, our other co-host on the stream, drafted one hell of a team in this draft. Again, all the teams are close.
Simon. You don't have to say it's him. Just to make him happy.
I gotta give credit. I gotta give credit where credit is due.
It's due.
I mean, just from the first 3 picks, I love the way he started this draft. He got one of I consider Pat Mahomes in his own tier as far as dynasty quarterbacks go. And then the next tier, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, and I would throw Trevor Lawrence in there, but I know not everyone would. But most people cut that tier off at Dak Prescott.
In there too.
You could throw Joe Burrow in there as well. But Jail got value. I know that sounds crazy at the 106, but he got one of the last of that tier of quarterback. That's where I love picking in these Dynasty Superflex drafts, and I'm realizing that as we go on. He was able to still stay in that tier, but get to pick early in the second round, earlier than these other teams with the elite quarterbacks. And he followed that up with the number 1 and number 2 fantasy wide receivers from last season in redraft, Davante Adams and Stephon Diggs. I know people are worried about Aaron Rodgers leaving. I had a mini freak out last week about Davante Adams' value in Dynasty without Aaron Rodgers, but I have a hard time believing Rodgers isn't going to be back in Green Bay. Like I'm just always going to take the path. I'm going to take the path of least change in the NFL. Know what I mean? I feel like that's what we see the most often is like the path that requires the least amount of change is the one we see the most often. These storylines are fun. He could leave. Don't get me wrong. 100% that's in the outcomes. But I'm tempering expectations for Rodgers leaving. But that being said, even if Rodgers leaves, Davante Adams is still one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And like you've brought up before, has shown he can produce without Aaron Rodgers.
I'm more worried about Aaron Jones, believe it or not. If Aaron Rodgers leaves, then I am Davante Adams. I know that sounds weird. Aaron Jones is a running back. He's not getting as many passes thrown his way, but I think it hurts the offenses as a whole. And I think Davante Adams is going to get his, and Aaron Jones is not going to get nearly as many touchdowns if Aaron Rodgers isn't there.
No, absolutely not. And then Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen's new best friend and JL's high school best friend. That's a solid 3-round start. Now, usually I would probably continue waiting on running back, but the value JL got on Joe Mixon and Josh Jacobs in rounds 4 and 5 is unbelievable. I don't think people realize just how much volume Josh Jacobs got last year. For some reason, it felt a bit disappointing, but it was preposterous. I wish I had the numbers pulled up right now.
But what about Kenyon Drake? What about Kenyon Drake, Simon? He's going to steal some of the carries. No, he's not. Josh Jacobs is going to be just fine. He's sliding a little bit too much for me, in my opinion.
I agree. He's still going to be the primary bell cow running back in that Raiders offense, and he's still young. It wasn't too long ago that he was the dynasty sweetheart whenever he came into the league. And he's getting the volume and decent production to warrant that. And Joe Mixon, you and I are a bit more Joe Mixon believers than I think John Luke is, but in the 4th round, you can't pass up on that value, right? And then to wait until the 6th round for a second quarterback, which is still early for JL. Usually he likes to wait. He got Aaron Rodgers as his second quarterback in the 6th round. If Aaron Rodgers plays next season, which I expect he will, whether it's in Green Bay or Denver, you've got the reigning MVP. And even if he goes back, reverting to what he was doing the previous seasons is still a top 10 quarterback, okay? We're just reverting back from the best or top 3 to top 10. So I think you can continue expecting that from Aaron Rodgers. And then to back up those wide receivers, he's got Odell Beckham Jr. in the 8th round. Whatever you want to say about him, I will buy talent all day long, and I still believe in the talent for Odell, and I believe in the Browns coaching staff. I believe in Kevin Stefanski, and they're not going to make the same mistakes that they made with Odell last year. Kevin Stefanski proved he was a smart head coach, and you have to trust that. And pair that with the first wide receiver drafted in this year's draft, Devonta Smith. I'm in love with his wide receiver core. And that didn't even bring up Terrace Marshall. Usually I do not love a wide receiver core on a dynasty team this much and still like the starting running backs. But JL pulled it off. He found value every which way. The first 3 rounds, I wouldn't call it value necessarily. Prescott, obviously, in some terms is a value at 6, but Adams, Diggs, that's about where they're expected to go. But Mixon, Jacobs, Rodgers, Smith, Beckham, Cousins, Marshall. I love the value on every single one of those picks. And then James Conner down there in Arizona. Why not? Know what I
It's
mean? Someone
worth
has to get all
taking
the
a shot
carries.
on.
And Chase Edmonds, I don't think can handle a full workload. They're not going to run him into the ground. He's not a workhorse running back. James Conner will see work. That's why I like Jail's team. Sorry, I got a bit.
If I had to put money on it, James Conner will get the most carries for that offense. Yeah. I think Chase Edmonds is going to be the best fantasy back. I really do. I think he's going to get a lot of catches, he's going to get enough runs himself to be relevant. But James Conner, there's a good chance that he could just take the job and run with it. And Chase Edmonds is the third down back.
I mean, we saw today on stream that Kenyon Drake in that offense had 59 first downs, and that didn't come off of him being spectacular in that offense. It came off of volume. That's where that work came from, and James Conner is going to receive a lot of that. It's not all going to Chase Edmonds. Josh, was there another team you wanted to talk about next?
Yeah, so I had a lot of trouble again trying to pick this team. I thought about maybe mentioning a couple of teams that I like, year one. I like Jaywalt's team. I would never draft Jaywalt's team, go that many running backs.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was gonna say Jaywalt. I would never draft your team, but I like it. I like it a lot. That's what mock drafts
are for, trying out new things, seeing what works, and it kind of worked, man. I like his team. I'm not going to talk about it. Brady. Let's come back to Brady. Number 1 overall pick, Patrick Mahomes. That's going to start you out pretty well. Followed up by Calvin Ridley. Julio Jones is out of that. He's only going to gain value from here. George Kittle, he's my number 1 dynasty tight end. I love George Kittle. Travis Etienne, Austin Eckler. These running backs are going to Travis Etienne. I'm a little nervous about him year 1, but he's going to be serviceable. You're going to be able to start him. I truly believe that. Austin Eckler. People consistently just are like, nah, I'd rather have the new hotness, right?
I was guilty of it in the past. I was out on Austin Eckler and Aaron Jones last year. I think I was just hesitant to this running back that seems to be primarily a pass catcher. Not that Aaron Jones is a bit more of a runner than Eckler, but these guys proved me wrong on that front as well. They're excellent runners.
Thing is, Justin Herbert, now getting paired with him, I trust Justin Herbert so much more than I did. He used to have Phillip Rivers, but we never knew when he was going to be out of there. And then Tyrod Taylor was his starting quarterback going into the year last year, so that made me a little bit nervous for Austin Eckler. But I am not nervous with Joe Burrow. Anyway, he goes with Mayfield in the 6th.
With Justin Herbert, sorry.
Yes. Sorry, what did I say?
Joe Burrow.
Sorry, Justin Herbert. Sorry. Baker Mayfield in the 6th is a great value. Kenny Golladay in the 7th. Rashad Bateman in the 8th. Tyler Boyd. People are way too low on Tyler Boyd now. I understand they got Jamar Chase, but Tyler Boyd is going to be a good receiver throughout his career. I really believe that. Slot receiver. Jameis Winston, I think he will be the starter for the Saints. Zach Moss could be the starting running back for Buffalo. Mike Williams, a lot of upside. This team's great, Brady. I'd be fine going into the season with this team. You could win first year, and you got good assets to be good 4 years from now. Good job, Brady.
Yeah, Brady, I like your team as well. The wide receivers after Ridley and Galladay, really after Ridley, scare me quite a bit. Yeah. I like Galladay, but I'm nervous about him there in New York. Bateman on Baltimore, I'm not a big fan of the Baltimore pass catchers. I have been rising recently, but there's only so much volume to go around there. And then Boyd, you mentioned my concerns, said it wasn't as big of a deal as you think, but man, I feel like there's going to be an odd man out there between Chase, Higgins, and Boyd when it comes to fantasy value. I don't view that offense the same way as I view the Cowboys offense that I think can maintain 3 fantasy relevant receivers. I don't view the Bengals in that way, and I think Tyler Boyd's going to be the odd man out next year. And I'm not as confident that Jameis Winston's the starter as you are. Sean Payton time and time again has gone against logic and shown us that he loves Taysom Hill. He's gonna have to prove me wrong first before I believe him that Jameis Winston is the starter. But listen, I do like the team. I'm not
here to make any guarantees.
Yeah.
Jameis Winston just seems like the right person for the job in my mind. I don't know. You need someone that can throw the ball. Taysom Hill can throw it. No. Maybe I could see Taysom Hill coming in situationally like he has in the past, but even more so.
Someone yesterday I was on stream with called Jalen Hurts worst Taysom Hill. And I was like, I think that's a bit harsh. I'm not quite on that boat yet, but I think they can be said in the same breath for sure. We alluded to it, but I want to talk about Jaywalt's team a little bit. Jaywalt, I'm going to reiterate it again. in dynasty drafts, I would have never, ever drafted this team. It is so the opposite of how I draft dynasty teams, but I think it might be my second favorite team.
That's so funny.
Here.
We had the same exact idea here with Jaywalt.
I would literally never draft this team. How I generally draft dynasty is waiting on RB quite a bit because it's better to build that base with wide receivers. It's easier to add running backs later through free agency, whether it's someone like a Phillip Lindsay, a James Conner who bursts onto the scene, or through the rookie draft. So you can generally find value there. But with wide receivers, it can be a bit more difficult to find like those superstar studs in those ways. At least early in their career. But you start off with Christian McCaffrey, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins. Christian McCaffrey, obviously a little bit older than the other two, but the consensus number one dynasty running back. Some people have JT up there at 1, but as a consensus, I'd say CMC is number 1. With 2 highly touted 2020 rookies that showed that they are what they advertised to be, right? I think Swift maybe a little bit more than Dobbins, but Dobbins should have more opportunity this coming year. Maybe a little bit. Gus Edwards is still there, but he should have a little bit more opportunity this coming season.
Listen, I know there's been a lot of talk, Dobbins being behind Lamar Jackson, the running back Lamar Jackson, and Gus Edwards. Yeah, Dobbins is going to get his. He's going to have a really good season. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and then the one thing that threw me off is when I first looked at this, I think it was all the talk about Jamal Williams recently. I was like, why the hell did he draft Jamal Williams in the fifth? And I was like, oh, that is Javonte Williams for the Denver Broncos. And that makes a hell of a lot more sense. As your fourth running back, I love that. But where this team wins me over is Michael Thomas, Robert Woods, Adam Thielen, Brandon Cooks at wide receiver.
And where he drafted them.
He waited on wide receiver. He drafted 1 wide receiver within the first 7 rounds, and that is his wide receiver core. Michael Thomas, Robert Woods, Adam Thielen, Brandon Cooks. That's disgusting to have those 4 running backs and grab those 4 wide receivers. I'm in awe. People continue disrespecting the slightly older wide receivers. Adam Thielen's the old one out there, but like Robert Woods, how old is he? He can't be older than 28,
He's
right?
28. That's what I would guess. And I mean, look at the quarterbacks.
So you know what? He's a little bit older, but yeah. And then that's the other thing I was going to say.
3 starting quarterbacks.
3 starting quarterbacks.
Tom Brady's going to play until he's 72. Like he's good.
Like he drafted Tom Brady after Jared Goff and Mac Jones. I'll take the 2, 3, 4 years of production we get out of Tom Brady, I think, over either of those guys in Dynasty for the time being. But the one part where this team kind of falls apart is while I will always preach you have to win this year as well, this team better win this year, I think.
It's a win now.
It needs to win soon. Not that these assets are going to stop producing soon. I think you've got quite a few years left of Michael Thomas, Robert Woods, Matthew Stafford, Christian McCaffrey. But as players hit this point, you can tell by where Michael Thomas is being drafted. Their dynasty value starts dipping and dipping and dipping. And he's going to have a hard time even trading away assets for appropriate value to start that rebuild. It's tough. But with a team like this, I'd be going all in on winning a championship this year and then selling the farm while you still can on a lot of these players. That would be my strategy with this team.
I think those are great points. Great points, sir. Honorable mentions to Julio Jones and Arsenal for me. Like both.
Arsenal, yep. Arsenal was the other one I wanted to mention that I wanted to talk about. I'm surprised. Usually I love the teams that kind of wait on running back, but there was a couple running back early teams that I really liked here. And man, do I love Trey Lance. The more I watch of him and the more I think about the situation he's in, I think he's a steal in the 4th round.
We just talked about this. You think Aaron Rodgers, there's a good chance he might be back? I don't think so. Jordan Love's going to be a starting quarterback this year.
Yeah, if Aaron Rodgers isn't back, Jordan Love could be a starting quarterback. Not bad as your third option.
First round starting quarterback. Late first round last year, but the upside, right?
Hey, it's still first round. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the last pick in the draft, and we always talk about him as a first-round running back, right? I know quarterback and running back are a bit different. Maybe not a fair analog, but yeah. And then you mentioned Julio Jones as well. Drafted Trevor Lawrence there at the 8th pick. I love that. That's probably about the right spot for it. And then exactly. No one position group maybe completely stands out, but such a balanced team. The biggest concern with that team is that RB2 slot. But like I said in Dynasty, if you're going to have a weakness coming out of the draft, I prefer it to be running back. That's going to be the position with the highest turnover year over year. I mean, if you don't believe me, just go look at like 2017 fantasy finishes and you'll be like, who? It changes so fast.
Part of this equation is that you can draft running backs out of the rookie draft and they are usable like that. You know, I'm not saying you should be aiming for a top 5 pick or anything unless your team kind of ends up that way, but running backs can play right away. So you don't have to like sit on them and worry about, are they going to produce year 2, year 3, blah. Running backs produce typically.
Yep. And rookie wide receivers, we saw an outlier season this past year.
Ooh,
don't expect that every year from rookie wide receivers. These rookie wide receivers that you're drafting, I'm not saying they're not good. I'm not saying they're not good picks, but Jamar Chase in the third, there's no guarantee. In fact, it's far from guaranteed that he'll have a season anywhere near CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, Justin Jefferson. Those guys are outside of the norm. Don't expect that from your rookie wide receivers whenever you draft them that early. Doesn't mean it's a bad dynasty pick.
One I would expect it to do it is Jamar Chase.
It is Jamar Chase. So maybe that was a bad example.
We can't. I think it was a great example, Simon, because I think people are going to overhype wide receivers just because of what happened last year, and don't expect that year one. Like give them a little bit of time to develop. You know, Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle specifically, and Bateman maybe.
Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about this draft, Josh? We're approaching 30 minutes. I don't want to keep it too long. Those were some of my favorite teams. But like I said, this was an unbelievably balanced draft. Even the teams I liked, I mentioned, like there were things about each one of them that kind of irked me, and there was no one team that stood out far and above all the others in this draft, which usually I am incredibly like attracted to one team in particular, but that just didn't happen this time. There was no one team that stood out to me. This would be a fun league to play out.
It would be. This is going to be a competitive league.
I kind of want
another word in there.
I kind of want to just convert this one to a best ball league and see what happens through the first season.
That would be really cool.
That might be fun. Cool. We'd have to do something with the roster construction because of the only 12 players, but that could be fun. Maybe we'll talk to the people that ran it and see if they'd be down to turn it into a best ball league just for fun.
Yeah, we can make it work.
Okay, I think that's it for us today, guys. Thanks for watching our mock draft review. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, we are at Front Yard Fantasy. It's likely right below you down there if you're watching this video right now. We'll do another one of these every single week, and we go live Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, playing games on the Fantasy Football Game Show. We play Poll Perception, which is a game based on fantasy polls that we find. We play Fantasy Horse. We do brackets. We do tiers. And on Mondays, we mock draft.
We get
so
competitive,
don't miss out on that. Make sure you subscribe.
I hate
yeah, we do get competitive. And sometimes about stupid things like fruit or what was another dumb one we did recently? Monster battles.
Bananas are delicious, Simon.
And they're fine. I think that's it for us today, guys. Unless you got anything else, Josh.
No, I'm good.
You got
trading makes fantasy fun.
Oh, I was about to say, are you okay? Are you sick?
Trading makes fantasy fun. Remember it, guys. Love you.
Adios, everybody.